welcome back to the Turdtowns channel. 2.5 years ago, we visited the county of Devon. To this day, it's the second highest viewed video on this channel. But to be honest, that video was not my finest work. I was still very new to all of this, and remarkably, I somehow shot that entire video in just one day. This meant that several of the Torquay towns were filmed in darkness. So this week on the channel, I've decided it was time to revisit Devon and see how much things have changed. To be honest, I've got no idea how I even did it in a day last time. This time I spent far longer on it. Little did I know, what I did record down in Torquay this time was still not good enough, and I'd have to go back again. God, the dedication I show to this channel, guys. You better be getting me to 100k soon. I've also left Clovelly off of the list this time because I only really included it as a controversial choice last time. It's really more of a tourist attraction than anything else. I've noticed that I get a lot of comments on this channel saying I need to come back down, especially to the Torquay area, so it's time for Devonshire Turdtowns 2025. Well, I've finally done it. I can give you some good news about somewhere for a change. But first, Barnstaple is a town with a population of 31,276 people. So on to that good news. Last time out, we had Barnstaple as the second worst place in Devon County. It was really smashed up and boarded up, full of aggressive homeless people and just not a nice place to be around. It was a lot worse than I ever expected. Well, this time I'm pleased to report that the place looks a lot healthier. I'm starting to wonder if Barnstaple just suffered really bad during the Corona crunch. It seems to have recovered a bit. It's no longer badly smashed up and boarded up, and the only aggressive people in the town are the surfer dudes who missed the waves of piss that swept through the town during the Corona crunch lockdowns. Barnstaple is the de facto capital of North Devon. It's near lots of genuinely nice seaside destinations, and if you come on holiday here, you'll most likely end up in Barnstaple at some point. Due to that, there's a lot of shopping streets. Even the mall in the centre was nice and modern and had high occupancy, in fact higher than anywhere else I visited. The good news does stop there though, because Barnstaple recorded its highest crime rate since records began. It now has a rate of 103 in 1,000, meaning as a ratio it is the second worst crime in Devon. Now I would normally make a big song and dance about this, but unfortunately it's a trend you're going to be seeing a lot more of in this video. I know people are going to ask about Bideford, its sister town just down the road. I actually came close to including Bideford this time. It has the look of a place that's starting to struggle, especially around the market area, but isn't quite there yet. There's a good chance it will feature next time, but we're here to talk about Barnstaple. An interesting recent development in the town is that there's a very good chance Barnstaple is about to lose its status as a port. So at one time, it was apparently the second biggest port in the southwest after Bristol, but the council are now saying it's going to cost £500,000 to bring the port up to the required standards for it to continue usage. But interestingly, nobody's using it anyway and it's not generating any revenue. I'm told it's so silted up and unusable that no boat bigger than a burger van could even come up this river anyway. So it doesn't really sound like any sort of loss, other than a potential revenue stream in the future if someone came up with an idea. In terms of other activities, the main pastime in Barnstaple is drinking. In fact, there's 2 Wetherspoons within crawling distance, and more bars and clubs than you could ever need. If you walk around here on any given night, you can find the usual suspects half cut on cider vinegar with piss dripping down their pants. Barnstaple certainly feels like the end of the tracks, in more ways than one. Number 6. Newton Abbot. Here's a new entry to the list. It's the mid-Devonshire town of Newton Abbot with a population of 29,638.
Here we are in Newton Abbot, and I've got a real treat for you guys, your favourite thing. An ugly telephone exchange. That is one of the ugliest buildings I've ever seen. Can you imagine back in the day, wanting to make a call to someone, you'd call them up and they'd be connected to a building like this and they'd go, "Number please." Like, that seems insane to me, like giving someone that much data and information about yourself. Doesn't seem very secure, does it? Most certainly open to a data breach or two. But I'll tell you who is secure and who isn't open to a data breach. PIA VPN, the sponsor of today's video. PIA VPN is the standard bearer of VPNs, and I've been using PIA for years. I wouldn't dream of going elsewhere. If you've been living in a bunker for the last 2 decades, a VPN is a virtual private network. Browsing the internet without one nowadays just is not a good idea. When browsing the internet using your unprotected device, you are transmitting a great deal of data which can be viewed by various people before reaching your intended website. A VPN will safeguard your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. It shields your connection from the eyes of those looking to exploit your personal information. PIA VPN is the world's most transparent VPN with over 30 million downloads. It's not just about security though. By using a VPN, you can access more streaming content from your favourite sites than ever before. It is available for Windows, Mac, Linux and Android, and just one PIA VPN subscription can protect an unlimited amount of your devices. Plus, I've also heard it's quite handy for dealing with the government's latest gift to the blue-eyed bonny British people. It is all risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. Just click the link in my description for a whopping 83% discount, leaving you with just $2 a month to pay, with an extra addition of 4 months completely free. If everything in life was that cheap, none of us would be living in a smashed up turd town. If you're sick and tired of seeing these redundant old buildings in your town that represent a time when your data was shared about willy-nilly, PIA VPN, the service that would never exchange your number please.
The town has several nicknames, most notably the somewhat immaturely named Paignton Abbot. I need to grow up. And also, even funnier, Mutant Rabbit. It must be hard being from Mutant Rabbit. It's near to Torquay without being a part of that, so tourists never come here. It's not an important city like the nearby Exeter, so shoppers avoid here. Also, it doesn't have the history of a city like Plymouth. Whilst none of that is Newton's fault, it would perhaps be better served trying to carve out its own niche, because currently, it's failing. Well, it's most certainly the ugliest town on today's list. It sort of reminded me of Cumbernauld up in Scotland, except with the flat roofs. It seems that the town planners gave up in the 60s and just left this place to rot. But I can't really say that now, can I? Because they are trying to fix up the market area. What they've done so far isn't great in all honesty. The units resemble low-effort square blocks from Minecraft. Who approved of this and thought it looked good? Hopefully it all works out for them, but with all the work going on, it makes the place an even more depressing visit. This is not what you think of when you picture Devon. This year, Newton Abbot recorded the most crime since records began, with the overall rate of 70 in 1,000, which isn't exactly bad, but it's worth pointing out the increase here. There are some attractive houses up on the hillside, so it isn't all bad as it might seem. People tend to live here who can't afford Exeter, and it's relatively cheap here with an average price of 292,000. It's a place that just keeps on growing and the builders can't keep up with demand. If you ask me, it's all short-sighted because Newton Abbot seems to flood more and more, and by 2050 it's predicted this place will be swallowed up. Possibly a good thing, although I can't help but be concerned about how much money is being wasted here in the short term. When the rivers rise and wash down the streets, combining with the stench and tears of Newton Abbot residents, it really does become Paignton. The best thing about Newton is its central location with the ability to easily escape to much better towns. It's like a blocked public toilet. It's disgusting and it stinks, but it's convenient and you kind of need it. And you can easily leave anytime you want anywhere without it being your mess to clear up. Number 5. Ilfracombe. Another return to the Turdtowns list for Devon is Ilfracombe, the seaside resort with a population of 9,202. I noticed last time that people were really not happy with the inclusion of Ilfracombe on the list. For some reason people still hold this place in high regard, even though its glory years have long since passed. Well, Ill is right. I actually expected this to be number 1 or number 2 this year. I visited here again about a year ago and it looked appalling to me. Even worse than last time I shot a video here. But I am a fair man and it didn't really look that way this time. Bad, yes, but not as bad as I remembered it being. So ultimately, not a lot had changed here. The most striking feature is a road that I like to call Hell-Tale Street. It's a road full of huge, disgusting, boarded up hotels, although to be fair, I think one of them has made a return from the dead. But it's not exactly a great first impression for a tourist. Last time I also got hate for saying that Ilfracombe doesn't have a proper beach. This disgusting grey cove full of needles and tears that you're seeing right now is not actually the only beach here. There is another beach. Sort of. Tunnels Beach is the main beach. It costs £3.50 to enter a standard beach that wouldn't be any different to hundreds of other beaches in Devon up this way if it wasn't for one thing. The beach is currently closed due to a landslide. So, I'll keep my £3.50, and as far as I'm concerned, Ilfracombe still doesn't have a beach. The town is very hilly, which obviously Ilfracombe can't help. It reminds me of a turd splatter, clinging to the edge of the bowl above the waterline. As you drive into Ilfracombe, you are filled with a sense of dread coming down the hill. The town centre is a great place to hang yourself. It will really encourage you to see it through. Yeah, the buildings are old and tall and historic, but somehow they are the definition of drab and dreary. How is it that a Costa coffee can't even survive in this town? Really, there isn't many shops that you would have ever heard of here. Most of the shops look like a hoarder's front room. But don't let this get you down, because it's actually time to celebrate something. Ilfracombe managed to achieve something this year. For the first time since records began, Ilfracombe also recorded its worst crime figures to date. Somehow, Ilfracombe residents committed twice the number of crimes of 2023. As a ratio, it's also more crime per resident than Plymouth and Exeter, 2 cities. What an achievement for this small town. It's hard to know what has caused this explosion of crime. Lots of the crimes in this area seem to be drug-related or drunk driving, which in fairness, you can't blame them for. If you lived in Ilfracombe, it wouldn't be long before you headed down that path. It's still pretty cheap to buy here though by Devon standards at an average price of just $253,000. But remember, it takes forever to drive here. The North Devon Expressway must have been named in jest. It only has patches of dual carriageway, unlike the brilliant new A30 down in Cornwall. It makes just getting to Ilfracombe a tedious experience, worsened in the summer. Away from the town centre and away from the bottom of the hill, there are some really lovely houses with excellent views. So, don't go into the town centre, I hear you say. Well, wouldn't that ruin the whole point of living near the seaside? Most people who live here are probably too old to make it back up the hill to their houses anyway. The tourist area is grey and bleak. It's like visiting a tourist destination that was close to Chernobyl. The only tourists here are now urban explorers looking to explore the ruins of a 60s seaside town, which forever will remain in exactly the same state. Fascinating. I do have a small anecdote I'd love to share here with you all though. This one will be of particular interest to those of you trapped in loveless marriages, or perhaps you just really love winding your loved one up. Last year, I took a girl here. I don't know why. I guess she wanted to look at some charity shops. These are poor people hobbies if you're wondering what we do with our spare time anyway. So there was only 1 or 2 shops open, so that was a waste of time. But she was so appalled by how bleak Ilfracombe was that it caused us to get into World War III. I was accused of ruining our holiday, tempers flared, and we later split up. So thank you Ilfracombe for associating with the word dump in more ways than one. Number 4. Cullompton. Well, here's a new one for the list. It's the mid-Devonshire town of Cullompton with a population of 8,889. First up, I hate the name. It sounds like what happens when somebody mates with a turnip. They're actually so dense here that it took them until the Victorian times for an agreement on how to spell the town's name. There is only 2 towns on the list today which aren't really tourist places, and this is one of them. Could you imagine actually trying to come here for fun? Well, in terms of fun, the main sport of the town is trying to drive your car into as many ducks as possible. I would question the logic in setting up duck mansions at the size of the busiest road in the town, but people from Cullompton were never the brightest. The town is mainly just used as a commuter base as it's between Taunton and Exeter, but even that doesn't really work. One of the biggest issues with the town is the traffic. The town is really close to the M5 motorway where every Friday the road completely gives up and some people are then forced to divert into Cullompton. They soon realised they would have been better off sitting in the motorway traffic than experiencing a Friday night in the joyful market town of Cully. It's bleak and depressing here, made worse by the fact I arrived in torrential rain. The high street is very bad and its downfall certainly hasn't been helped by the massive Tesco's just down the road. There's also loads of creepy little dead-end alleyways hanging off the high street which are full of trash. These are definitely the sort of alleyways you wouldn't want to walk alone in at night. It feels like a Victorian slum where Jack the Ripper might suddenly spawn kill you and leave your body decaying in a pile of bin bags. They won't be removed for months anyway. You know somewhere's bad where they had to close the public toilets down years ago because people wouldn't stop dumping on the walls and then writing with their finger on the walls, Cully for life. I did not like Fall Street, a very unwelcoming place. Now there is going to be a trend emerging in this video and we're talking about the crime rates here. Cullompton does have a very low crime rate of 56 in 1,000, but it's the worst on record yet again and crime is now 4 times higher here than in 2016. That is a hell of a jump. They should probably do something about that there, but they're probably too busy concentrating on stacking up thousands of new cardboard box homes around the outskirts of the town, on floodplains. The average house price here is $282,000. It's alright to live here, but it's getting worse every year, and you need to be aware of that. The rise in crime and the M5 motorway both mean that this is not the idealistic commuter town that they make it out to be. In Cullompton's defence, there is some good news coming out. They will apparently get a train station. About time. The line is right next to the town. As I've been saying, if it was up north or in London, it would have been built years ago. But not just that, they're also building a relief road to help congestion in the town. Well, after I visited here, I needed some relief, but the toilets were closed. So they do seem to be aware of some of the problems here. They just didn't care about them before, but now they've reached the bottom of the list of places that need help, and the least important places are now getting the help they need. Just like an unemployed obese man with a prescription for hemorrhoid cream. Number 3, Paignton. Another returning Turdtown from last time is the Torquay town of Paignton with a population of 67,488. I actually find it hard to write about Paignton. It is just so bland and forgettable. It doesn't really have any redeeming qualities to make it stand out. No drone shots for this one either, it was too windy. Well, you better make sure you're up to date with your shots before heading into Paignton, because you could be sure to take a few crabs home with you, and nobody's talking about the fishmongers, if Paignton even has one. I was surprised by how many people live here. It's quite a major place, but it just doesn't feel like one. I believe it's the 3rd or the 4th biggest place in the county, but even Newton Abbot feels more important. It just feels like a cheap seaside town with no other purpose other than to disappoint the poor unsuspecting tourists who visit here. If you want to buy some cheap holiday tat, this is the place for you. Paignton did used to be nice, but unfortunately lots of unwanted people have been shipped in, which has lowered the tone of the area. Just this week, one man was arrested for defecating on tombstones in a Paignton cemetery. If that doesn't give you serious Turdtown vibes, nothing ever will. Elsewhere in the news, Paignton will leave you panting, as it is the centre of illegal tobacco and vape products for Devon. You can often find shops here have been closed down for selling the illegal products, but it's like whack-a-mole because as soon as one store closes, another one opens up. They must profit from the holiday trade or something. Its crime rate is also the highest it's ever been at 74 in 1,000. Bet you're sick of hearing me say that, but what on earth is happening in Devon this year? Something that has changed since our last visit is that Crossways Shopping Centre has finally been completely pulled down. Well, they left some parts of it standing around just to remind you of the glory days, I guess. They've now replaced it with a gorgeous car park, the stuff that dreams are made of. Apparently this car park is just temporary and they want to build social care units here, which has not gone down well as it's not going to help regenerate this town. There is admittedly some stuff to do here, so it's not a complete write-off. I'm sure it's fine for a visit, but I wouldn't want to live here, especially for the average price of $276,000. It all feels tacky and cheap here. But hey, at least the name is appropriate, because you will most certainly feel pain living in this town. Number 2, Plymouth. Plymouth will be the only city featured on today's list with a population of 272,000. Despite Plymouth achieving, I don't know if achieving's the right word for the situation, let's call it a hollow achievement of finishing second on a Devonshire Turdtowns list. But despite that, I still like this city. Sadly though, it's going to the dogs. I have lots of complaints, so where to begin? The roads in and around Plymouth are a complete nightmare. It must hold the record for the most speed cameras in the southwest. All the limits here feel at least 10 miles an hour too slow, so that slows everybody right down. Off the main roads, everything is narrow and it's just not appropriate for the amount of traffic here. It takes forever to get anywhere. I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, I know, but once again, Plymouth recorded its highest crime rate since records began. Compared to last year, there was a whopping 5,000 additional crimes committed. That is insanity. The overall crime rate here is now 81 in 1,000. But ultimately, the worst issue right now is the shopping centre. Last time I visited here, it was decent enough. Slightly dated looking, but a good selection and fitting of a city. But now they've chosen to try and fix up the entire place all at once. Armada Way looks completely trashed and they're carrying out all this work the whole way down it. I despise how they tightly squeeze everybody into these little gullies to walk down the hill, because it means you have to come extremely close to the Plymouth locals and it's not a pleasant experience. I would also suggest this has got to be intimidating to someone who had no chance to avoid some of the less desirables hanging around here. Seems like a terrible idea. I wonder how much extra crime this has caused. The plans I've seen for what they're trying to do here seems nice enough. Armada Way will be greenways, cycle lanes, trees, seating and a play park. It's actually one of the largest projects going on in Britain right now, coming in at £30 million. But by the time it's done, all of the shops will have closed down and it could be a giant waste of time. I don't want to be negative about this, but the time for spending millions making town centres look nicer has surely passed by now. With all the businesses that are struggling, do you really think this was good timing? It reminds me of Yeovil in a way. I'm going to be interested to see how it's doing in a few years after completion. Will the shops come back, or will they be left with a £30 million walkway covered in seagull droppings, vape cartridges and urine? One thing's for sure though, if you visit now, you're going to hate Plymouth. I don't understand why they had to carry out all of this work at the same time. Surely a staggered approach would have been far better for everybody. Because lots of the shops have closed down, it creates a bit of an eerie atmosphere within the city. Large groups are hanging around, but they haven't really got anything to see or do here, so instead they intimidate passers-by. Gotta love the painted murals on the way out of the city centre. They have got to be joking. How can they possibly brag about this shopping centre? Maybe the artwork was here first? It just makes the whole place look ridiculous. The local dialect is slowly being eradicated here as more and more people talk like roadmen as they seem to think that Plymouth is a London ghetto. But still, the question remains, what happens in Stonehouse? Whilst Plymouth is a city, it has issues which many cities in the UK do not have. Most of these problems are due to its isolated location in the southwest. Wages are below average for a city. The nearest proper airport is Bristol, and that's 2 hours away, and despite being by the sea, it's not a place for a holiday. I know I sound really negative, but Plymouth does have some redeeming qualities, mostly the history of the place and things to see and do. The other huge draw, of course, is the incredibly low average house price of just $216,000. You're going to have a very hard time beating that in this county. Many of the houses seem to get purchased with the intent to rent them out to students, as there is a large university presence in the middle of the city. For now, the city does look like a complete state, but hopefully in a few years this turd-filled ocean city has managed to turn itself around. But for now, I'd say give it a miss. It's so depressing to spend a single minute in this place. Now we're about to get into number 1, so let's talk about where didn't make the cut and why. So we've already talked about Bideford, and that might feature next time, but we've also got Dawlish, which gets some bad reviews online. Honestly, it's better than it was on my previous visits. There was only 2 empty shops and a lot of work was being done in the town. There was lots of happy tourists here and there's low crime. I couldn't really come up with a logical reason to include it. I also did visit Teignmouth. I don't know why my recording hasn't come off, but I thought the place was okay, other than having some huge council flats towering above the town centre. The place had a high occupancy rate for the independent shops, lots of happy tourists. I didn't hate it. And finally, I visited Oakhampton. I get constant comments about how bad this place is. I'm just not seeing it. It looked really nice. If you think this place is bad, you have to get out and travel more. But I'd love you to let me know in the comments, what case could I make for this place making the Turdtowns list? I was not seeing it. On to the biggest turd town, which I'm sure you've all predicted already. Number 1, Torquay. Back at number 1, just like last time, and for good reason. It's the seaside town of Torquay with a population of 52,000. I'm not sure if that's correct. It seems like Paignton might have outgrown Torquay, but I literally researched this for half an hour and I cannot understand how the data keeps showing Paignton has more people. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that Torquay and Paignton is essentially one giant stream of turd that splatters the southern coast of Devon, creating a stain that can never be scrubbed away. I hate doing this, I really do. Torquay was my favourite place in England as a kid, and I was adamant I wanted to live here. So here we are then, the jewel of the English Riviera, where everybody's got a smelly face. Does this look like somewhere to be proud of? Anyway, they've only gone and done it again, haven't they? The impossible could not have happened. Therefore, the impossible must be possible in spite of appearances. Yes, Torquay's got worse. Once again, Torquay has the worst crime in the county. But that's not all. It managed to also record its worst crime figure since records began. If you compare it to 2016, crime is 3 times higher now. Wow, great job everybody involved. You've really helped make this crown into a turd-covered baseball cap. Honestly, it's data like that that gives this video legitimacy, because how can you possibly argue with that? There's no way to spin it. So what's been going on here then? Well, we've had 3 fat men rob 10 grand worth of skincare products from Boots. Now, I know that nowadays men are a bit more in touch with their feminine side, but surely that's taking it too far. For the look of them, they should have stolen weight loss medication. We've got knife point robberies, men stealing old ladies' purses, and more drug use than a Friday with your best mate Shah down the Star. The top end of the high street resembles a war zone. The higher up you go, the more crushed and angry the faces become. It's the sort of place you can expect to hear, "Oi, what are you looking at?" as a can of Stella comes whizzing past your head. As I walked around, I overheard a conversation between 2 young ladies saying, "Don't go up there, it isn't safe." They're right to think this. I am surprised that the poverty YouTubers haven't come down here, they'd have a field day. If you want to live in the English Riviera, home of the incredible microclimate which is 0.0001% hotter than the rest of England, you can do so for an average price of $264,000. Anyway, why is it so bad here? Skegness wasn't as smashed up and miserable as Torquay. Great Yarmouth had much more things to see and do, and at least Weston-super-Mare has donkeys. In Torquay, you can't even ride the donkeys. They're too busy coughing tar out of their lungs whilst leaning against a pole to support their pregnant belly of the imminent birth of their 7th child. Can you imagine your waters breaking up in Torquay High Street? It could slide all the way down to Wetherspoon's toilets, the only place to take a dump in this hellhole. Laughably, they actually hope to attract upmarket guests to Torquay by turning the old Debenhams into a posh hotel. Well, unless the hotel is going to offer a 24/7 armed guard service, it's going to fail. Maybe try sorting out the town first before looking to better yourself. As I walk along, a shop sign proudly proclaims that they sell the cheapest magnets in the area. Like that's some sort of incredible deal that we need to take advantage of. A knob is glued to his phone screen as he almost crashes straight into an unsuspecting lady. The lady, of course, is the one to apologise. One police officer is left to cope with an army of homeless crackheads. A dog dumps directly on the pavement, only to be eaten straight away by a seagull who promptly relieves itself all over Beverley from Bristol. She's having the time of her life in Torquay. Drug usage is everywhere. Untrusting eyes squint at you from shop doorways, but boozy stag doos seem to do well. As long as the booze keeps flowing, they won't notice the state of Torquay. Even Basil Fawlty would look competent compared to how this town is being run. And that's the list. Did we leave anywhere out? I've tried to show you in this video a bit more of my process and justifications behind certain towns not making it to the list. I believe up next, I'm going to be heading east, am I? I don't know. Don't hold me to that though, because I'm not getting caught out by the rain again. I am also planning on doing an episode of Posh Towns or two, because that's been a while. Were you surprised of anywhere in this video, and where looked the worst to you? We are edging closer and closer to our goal of 100k, and I'd like to make that happen by the end of the year. And I'd be surprised if it doesn't, with me doing some extra videos. So don't miss out on any of them by hitting like, share and subscribe to help Turdtowns thrive.